Welcome. I'm Erin Anderson, and I'm the managing editor of the canfitpro magazine. Today, we're speaking with Chris Fudge on strength training and what happens when an athlete becomes too strong too soon. Welcome, Chris, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Chris, can you give us a little bit of information and background on your role in the fitness industry?
I've been in the fitness industry actively for over, I think, my 15th year now. And I've worked in the commercial gym setting. I've worked at universities, strength conditioning coach, personal trainer. I've worked over 20,000 hours. I've done over probably 40 certifications. This is my passion. This is my purpose. This is what I do on a day-to-day basis. So I am in the trenches, personal trainer, Monday to Friday.
Excellent. Thank you. Chris, you're also presenting 2 sessions as well as being on a panel discussion at Fit Montreal on March 27th to the 29th. Can you tell us a little bit about what you'll be presenting and what can be expected from those sessions?
Okay. One of the sessions that I'm doing is how to use video in your training business, how to use it effectively. Video is used all the time, but there's little different nuances you can really amplify that. So that's actually going to be a live workshop where the delegates are going to come in with their video devices, and we're going to look at things about what do you want to get out of using video, angles you need to be at, what to look for, how to actually use the technology efficiently to communicate to and from the client, and to get the most out of the individual. A normal thing that we might ask a client to do in a gym setting, a group training session, is we'll demo an exercise and we'll ask him or her to do it. They would see us doing it, and they might not do it the way we want them to. Be missing something. We might give them verbal cues or kinesthetic cues that adult learners usually do pretty good with. But the reality is a lot of people in a gym setting, they got to feel it, they got to see it too. So video can be very powerful in showing clients, you're here, I want you doing this instead. And as soon as they see themselves on camera, they get it, and then also they can elicit a greater response, and you can progress them through training much faster. I'm going to show people how to actually use that technology to save time, to be more efficient, small little things like a light in the background, where you're going to use it in your gym setting, how to email it to and from, how you can edit it using lines, angles, timers, all those little things there, so that when you're done that session, you're going to be pretty confident and confident of using video with clients.
Excellent. Awesome. Your other session will be called Too Strong Too Soon. So can you give us a little bit of information on that? And then I've got a couple questions I'd like to ask you about that.
I'm super excited about that one, probably the most, because this is a topic that's actually been brewing for multiple years in the fitness industry. One of the things that's actually very popular right now is the sport of powerlifting. Powerlifting has exploded in the last 5 years just because of the accessibility and also the virtuality. People are seeing people lifting heavy weights on the internet all the time now, and they want it. So in the sport of powerlifting, there's a max rep for one squat, bench press, and deadlift. You add up all 3, and that's your score. I didn't mention I'm a powerlifter myself. I've competed in over 60 competitions. I coach clients. I run powerlifting meets. I'm on the referee side of it. And just one thing that I've noticed over the years is the sport's become so popular and everybody's doing it, there is a ton of injuries coming from it. And one of the major reasons is people are gravitating towards, how do I get really strong today? People aren't waiting. They're not putting the time in, and they're just pushing things way too fast. And in my business as a personal trainer, I'm seeing a lot of people in the industry get hurt, and they're just going too fast, getting too strong too quick, and there's a lot of side effects with that.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about that. So as personal trainers, we're always learning and applying the safest and most applicable strategies to our clients and their programs. Armed with this information, so are clients still getting hurt in the gyms?
Yeah, clients are getting hurt because the understanding is not always there. And what I mean by that is people will always look at technique. You need to have good technique. You need to have good technique. We're all aware technique is important. But how do people still get hurt with good technique? The reason why people get hurt with good technique is everybody has a biological tolerance. Everyone has a blueprint in their genetic makeup that only allows them to do so much. And what happens when you push beyond your biological tolerance? Things break down. You get hurt. A lot of my training from back health comes from Dr. Stu McGill. And Stu McGill used this analogy once. He talked about using a stick. And when you bend a stick, if you have a small twig, you can bend the twig over and over and over again. And it can actually take that bit of a bend. If you take something very thick, it's not going to bend. And if it does bend, it actually breaks. And use that analogy with spines. He talked about that people are born with different spines. And you're not just going to look at someone and say, you've got a thick spine and you've got a thin spine. But the reality is people are like that. You don't see linebackers playing golf. And you don't see golfers that can tolerate heavy lifting. The major reason is their spines are built differently. And people are like that. We can't tolerate a lot of load too fast, too soon. And if we do, the side effect is we start to break down, the body gets injured. So a simple concept that people need to understand beyond technique is adaptation of the body. The neurological system adapts the fastest, the muscular system is second, and then connective tissues are third. So if my connective tissues will say, like the spine itself, over time it bristles and actually gets stiffer and more hard, where it can actually tolerate more axial loading or weight on top of itself, similar to a barbell back squat. But my nervous system can adapt very quick. So I can start doing some heavy training and I can get strong pretty quick, but my connective tissues have not caught up to that. And what happens is if I push too hard, I'm going to start getting some injuries. So technique is part of it, but it's not all of it. And when you don't understand the full picture of strength training, your chance of injury goes up a lot.
Okay, yes, excellent. Thank you. Good information. What are some of the most common injuries that you see or that are associated with this type of strength training?
Powerlifting, specifically of those exercises, when you look at the compiled research of how many injuries happen, you're usually looking at 4 injuries per 1,000 hours of activity. That's an average. So some people obviously are going to get more, and some people are going to get less. But that is right up there with strongman, and those would be the 2 sports or barbell-related sports that have the most injuries. The major injuries that tend to happen are always going to be found in the shoulder and the back. And those reasons are those structures can't tolerate that amount of work over time. You have to build up progression. So for powerlifting, you're getting some form of rotator cuff injury in the shoulder. And then for the back, you're going to be looking at, possibly getting bulging discs. You're going to get end plate fractures, which is actually a very common one. It's a very scary one because you don't feel it right away. An end plate fracture essentially is when there's too much compressive load for the spine to handle, and the plate surrounding the disc can't tolerate it anymore, and it'll actually split. And when it splits from axial loading usually. So you're going to get this split vertically. If you bulge a disc anteriorly or posteriorly, when it pushes out, it usually compresses or presses on a nerve, and you get an instant ow. When you get an end plate fracture, you don't get that feedback right away. What happens is over time, once you've had that split, you're going to start feeling a lot of irritation, and you're not too sure why that is. And then all of a sudden, anytime you're walking off a curb and you fall quickly, you get a bang, it feels instant shock throughout your body. You've probably had an end plate fracture for a duration of time. You've literally loaded your body too much too soon, and it didn't take enough time to actually callus and strengthen the bones. So the end plate fracture is a really big one, and unfortunately, it's not an instant where you feel right away. It happens down the road.
Oh, okay. What are some simple things that trainers can do to kind of reduce those chances of their clients getting injured while strength training to that degree?
One of the biggest things that they can do is slow it down. Reduce, do less. I always say we're going to try to pick the least amount of stimulus to cause an adaptation. So how little do I need to train someone to make them better? If I were to give someone the most right off the bat, and somehow they were able to actually survive, and by most I mean your training metrics, your total reps, your volume, the amount of weights you're lifting, the intensity, all that jazz. If I gave them everything right off the bat and they somehow survive the first 4 weeks, the only way to progress is to actually give them even more. And if they haven't had enough time to actually strengthen the connective tissues, you get push that tipping point and an injury is going to occur. So one of the easiest things that you can do is apply the least amount of stimulus to cause a change, meaning go less, do less. Do just enough where it's challenging. An easy tool you can use is actually program in recovery weeks. In the training world, these will be known as deload weeks. I personally will call them recovery weeks because the focus is on this week of training. It's to recover from the previous weeks of training. Now, if someone is brand new to lifting and they're not lifting that heavy, a recovery week might need to be down the road. They might be able to go 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks. Then they need a recovery. If someone has been pushing really hard for many years, they might know that, every 4th week, I feel a little twinge in my low back. That might be the time to actually put in this recovery week, where you're reducing intensity or volume, and you're adding in some recovery protocols for the client as well. The unfortunate part is it's a little bit variable from person to person. You don't really get an understanding until you work with that individual. I'll give you an example. I currently have one client right now. She's 23 years old. She is a student in university, taking 4 classes a semester. She lives with mom and dad, and she eats what she wants. She can train 3-4 hours a session 3 or 4 times a week. She can sleep 8 to 10 hours. She's not in a relationship. She doesn't work. She's good. There's no stresses.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got another client, a few years older, in her late 20s. She's doing her residency as a doctor, and she's doing these crazy overnight shifts, crazy long hours. There's a lot of stress. For her, we can only train about 3 sessions a week, about 60 to 90 minutes, because that's all she can recover from. But if I gave both of them the exact same program, someone's going to get hurt and someone's not going to get hurt. So you really have to personalize it. And strength training is not just add weight, do 5 reps, just add weight, do 5 reps. You got to be aware of who you're working with and then tailor it for them.
Okay, great. No, it's so true, and it makes sense. Are there 1 or 2 exercises that are more likely to cause injuries when strength training? Or are there any exercises that people should perhaps avoid?
I think there's some exercises that kind of get a bit of a bad rap. Like from strength training, you could say the barbell back squat and the barbell deadlift are 2 that say, you're going to get hurt if you do those exercises. In the wrong context, any exercise can get someone hurt. And in the right context, any exercise can be for anyone. You could take the exercise like the deadlift. So the deadlift is going to start about 18 centimeters off the floor where the bar is going to be, or 18 inches there. And if I'm going to bend down and pick up that bar, and I'm staggering 5'8", but when I grab that bar is going to be around my mid-shin or a little bit lower. But if one of my training partners, who is 6'4", when he bends down to grab the bar from the exact same height, it's going to be a little bit above his ankle bone. Mm-hmm. So what that's going to do is his back is going to be more bent like this, and mine's going to be more like that. So right off the bat, just looking at his levers and my levers, his low back is going to have to do more work to lift that weight. So the deadlift is not a bad exercise, but it might make more sense to change the style of deadlift for this guy, possibly putting him in a sumo position, which is going to have his back upright more, similar to mine. Or I could give him a elevated deadlift, or I could give him a trap bar deadlift, which is another variation if his goal is to just get strong. So I won't say the exercise is necessarily bad for an individual. It's who's doing it, why are they doing it, and then how are you going to apply that exercise to them. A squat is another really good one. Sometimes people struggle to do a body weight squat. They don't know where to put their feet. They don't know how to brace their midsection. They don't know where their knees are supposed to go. But when they learn the squat, the first thing they do is they put a bar on their back. But they haven't figured out how to do anything else first. So you might want to be able to control your body weight in a squat first before you start loading it. So I won't say there's an exercise specifically that's bad for an individual. It's why are you choosing that exercise? What's the implications going to have on the individual? Should we start them somewhere else and progress to that moment? If you want to do a sport like powerlifting, there's rules. You got to follow the rules and do this exercise with this bar. But you know what? A lot of my clients, they just want to get strong. I said, well, why do you want to get strong? When I go to the cottage in the summer and I got to put the dock in the water, I want to be able to lift it myself. Okay, great. So there's no need for that individual to possibly do a conventional deadlift when they're 6'4". I could give them a trap bar deadlift, which brings the height of the bar up. They can still get strong doing that exercise so that when they go to the cottage, they can do their thing. So not a bad exercise, but it should be, why are we doing it? Who's it for? How are we going to impact, or how are we going to program it for the individual?
Okay. Are there any other, before we kind of wrap up today, is there any other points of advice or anything that you would recommend that trainers do or look out for when strength training to that degree, like powerlifting or training more in that higher level with their clients?
Yeah, the first thing is I would say to anyone and everyone is, do not get married to the weight. Don't be married to the amount of weight that the person is lifting or you are lifting. The weight will come in time. If you're going to be married to anything, be married to technique and form first. So an example of when people are married to the weight, oh, I lifted 200 pounds this week. I should probably be able to lift 210 next week. Then I should be able to lift 220. And then next thing you know, 52 weeks later, you're lifting 1,000 pounds. Right? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You can't be married to the idea of just add more weight every week because I'm doing the exercise. I should be able to get stronger. No, sometimes you can actually just do the exercise with less weight, and that can make you better because your form gets better over time. And guess what? Those connective tissues, they also get stronger as well, just because they're exposed to the exercise, not exposed to just heavy weight all the time. Slow it down.
Okay, excellent advice. Thank you very much for sharing that. Before we wrap up, I also want to mention that you were a finalist for the 2019 Fitness Professional of the Year, so congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit of that nomination process and why it's important for fitness professionals to consider applying and putting themselves out there for that.
I think just to be nominated alone was, it was very humbling. It was nice. I was nominated by a couple individuals. So it made me feel like, hey, you know what? I think I'm actually having a good impact on people because people are taking notice. So if you're in the industry and you're like, you know what? I feel like I've impacted a lot of people and I've changed some lives, then maybe the recognition should be there for you as well. So the application process was really good because I had to go through self-reflection. I had to fill out a bunch of questionnaires and surveys and these essays, and I had to look back and say, what did I really do in the last 10 to 15 years of my career? And it was nice to see that, hey, oh yeah, I did this, I forgot I did that, that's pretty cool. But after I've done that, I'm now like, okay, that's what I've done without really trying to do it. Now let's do more of it. So, for 2020, 2021, my focus is to really increase my volunteerism and my leadership within the industry. So we have our little charities that we do things for, and I did a little bit last year, the last 2 years. I think this year I can really do a lot more, and same with the leadership side of the industry.
Thank you for chatting with me today, Chris. And I just want to put a reminder out again to anyone listening that if they'd like to learn more about the impact of clients progressing too fast, too soon with Chris, then please check out Fit Montreal from March the 27th to the 29th, and Chris will be there. So thanks again, Chris. I really appreciate your time and your professionalism and hope to chat again soon.
Thank you, Erin. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.